Say it again, Doyen whispered against her mouth, his hands framing her face like she was something precious and breakable. His thumb traced her bottom lip, and Amara felt herself trembling. Say my name, Doyen. Her voice came out breathless, wrecked. But this is wrong. You're Yuna's father. Yours. His dark eyes burned into hers with an intensity that made her forget how to breathe. I've been yours from the moment I saw you. 93 days, Amara. I've counted every single one. Every hour I couldn't touch you. Every minute I had to pretend I didn't want to tear the world apart just to keep you safe. They were in his penthouse, Seoul glittering 40 floors below them, and Amara knew she was standing at the edge of something she couldn't come back from. This man, dangerous, powerful, 20 years older, had just told her he'd been obsessed with her for 3 months. She should run. She should call Yuna. She should do anything except what she was actually doing, which was leaning into his touch like she'd been starving for it. This shouldn't be happening, she whispered, even as her fingers curled into his shirt. You're my best friend's father. This is everything. He kissed her then, soft and devastating, and Amara felt the last of her resistance shatter. You're everything, and I'm done pretending I can live without you. She kissed him back, and the world caught fire. What Amara didn't know, what neither of them knew, was that 3 floors below, someone was watching. Someone who'd been waiting for Kong Doyen, Seoul's silent king, to finally reveal his one weakness. And in 48 hours, that weakness would have a gun pressed to her temple. Welcome to Afro-Korean Love Stories. If you're loving this story, hit that like button and subscribe, because what you're about to watch would leave you speechless. Tell me in the comments which city you're watching from. I'd really love to know. Now, let's dive into it. 3 months earlier, Amara Obi had arrived in Seoul running from ghosts. Not the supernatural kind. The human kind. The kind with a Houston area code and too many broken promises. At 24, Amara had learned that starting over meant burning bridges, and she'd left Texas with nothing but 2 suitcases and a plane ticket that her best friend Yuna had sent with a simple message. Come home. I miss you. Seoul wasn't home. Nigeria was home. Lagos heat and jollof rice, and her mother's voice singing Yoruba prayers. But Seoul was where Yuna was, and Yuna was the sister Amara had chosen when her blood family had stopped understanding her. Amara had met Yuna during a university exchange program 6 years ago. They'd bonded over late-night ramen and shared frustration with men who couldn't handle strong women. When Amara's life in Houston had imploded, a relationship that had turned controlling, then cruel, Yuna hadn't asked questions. She'd just sent the ticket. What Yuna hadn't mentioned was that her father had recently returned to Seoul after years abroad. What she definitely hadn't mentioned was what her father actually did for a living. Amara found out 3 days after arriving. The apartment Yuna had arranged was in Hanamdong, all floor-to-ceiling windows and minimalist furniture that probably cost more than Amara's entire education. Yuna had insisted on paying the first 6 months. My father owns the building, she'd said casually. He's happy to help my friends. Amara had imagined a businessman, maybe real estate, old money. She hadn't imagined Kong Doyen. He appeared at her door on her 4th evening in Seoul. No warning, just 3 sharp knocks, and then there he was when she opened the door, tall, broad-shouldered, wearing a black suit that looked like it cost more than a car. His face was all sharp angles and controlled danger, dark eyes that seemed to catalog everything about her in 2 seconds flat. He was the most devastatingly handsome man she'd ever seen. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Amara was wearing yoga pants and an oversized t-shirt, her box braids piled messily on top of her head. She probably had pizza sauce on her chin. She definitely wasn't prepared for the way her pulse kicked up when his gaze swept over her face. You're Amara, he said. His voice was deep, accented, careful. Not a question. And you're Yuna's father. She crossed her arms, suddenly very aware that she wasn't wearing a bra. She didn't mention you were stopping by. She doesn't know I'm here. His eyes held hers with an intensity that made her skin warm. I wanted to meet the woman my daughter has talked about for 6 years. Well, Amara tilted her head, refusing to be intimidated by whatever this was, this strange electricity crackling in the space between them. Here I am. Do I pass inspection? Something flickered in his expression. Almost a smile, but darker. More complicated. You're exactly what she described, which is dangerous. The word hung between them, loaded with meanings Amara didn't want to examine. She should have felt insulted. Instead, her pulse quickened, heat flooding her cheeks. Mr. Kong. Doyen, he corrected softly. And I came to give you this. He held out a phone new and sleek. Korean SIM card. Emergency contacts programmed. My number is first. Amara took the phone carefully, making sure their fingers didn't touch. The brief brush of his skin against hers sent electricity up her arm anyway. That's very generous. Thank you. If you need anything, call. His eyes held hers for one more weighted moment, and Amara felt something shift in her chest. Something dangerous and thrilling. Welcome to Seoul, Amara. He was gone before she could respond, leaving only the faint scent of expensive cologne and the unsettling feeling that something had just begun. She didn't call the number, but she caught herself staring at it 17 times that night, her finger hovering over his name, her heart racing like she was 17 and not 24. The next 2 weeks were torture. Amara threw herself into her new job at the event planning company in Gangnam, trying to ignore the way her mind kept drifting back to dark eyes and a voice that had called her dangerous. She explored Seoul, learned basic Korean phrases, made new friends at work. And every single night, she dreamed about a man she absolutely could not want. Then Yuna invited her to dinner. My father wants to get to know you properly, Yuna said over the phone, excitement clear in her voice. He's been asking about you. I think he's trying to do the whole protective father figure thing, which is hilarious because he's barely around usually. But he seems really interested in meeting my friends. Amara's stomach flipped. Yuna, I don't think. Please? I really want you two to get along. He's important to me, and so are you. So Amara found herself standing in front of her closet the following Saturday evening, trying on and discarding outfit after outfit. She told herself it didn't matter what she wore. Told herself the flutter in her stomach was just nerves about the formal dinner. She was lying to herself. She settled on a yellow wrap dress that hugged her curves and made her dark skin glow, paired with heels that made her legs look endless. Her braids were styled elegantly, gold hoops in her ears, minimal makeup except for the burgundy lipstick that made her lips look fuller. When she caught herself in the mirror, she looked beautiful, confident, sexy. She looked like a woman dressing for a man. The wrong man. Yuna's apartment was in a luxury building in Gangnam, all marble and glass and understated wealth. Amara arrived 15 minutes late, her heart hammering so hard she thought everyone would hear it. Yuna opened the door with a huge smile, pulling Amara into a hug. You look amazing. Come in, come in. Dad's already here. And there he was. Doyen stood by the floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Seoul, a glass of whiskey in his hand, wearing dark slacks and a white shirt with the sleeves rolled up to reveal strong forearms. When Amara walked in, his eyes found her immediately. The glass stopped halfway to his mouth. For 3 seconds, maybe 4, he just stared at her. And in those seconds, Amara watched something raw and hungry flash across his face before he shuttered it behind control. But she'd seen it, and her body responded like he'd touched her. Amara. Yuna was oblivious, leading her toward her father. Dad, you remember Amara? Amara, my father, Kong Doyen. We've met, Doyen said, his voice rougher than before. He set down his glass and extended his hand. It's good to see you again, Amara. She took his hand. Mistake. The moment their palms touched, electricity shot through her entire body. His grip was firm, warm, and lasted exactly 2 seconds too long. Mr. Kong, she managed, her voice steadier than she felt. Doyen, he corrected again, his thumb brushing once against her palm before he released her. Please. Dinner was torture wrapped in exquisite agony. Yuna had prepared japchae and bulgogi, chattering happily about her work at the marketing firm while Amara tried desperately to focus on anything except the man sitting directly across from her. But it was impossible. Every time she looked up, Doyen was watching her. Not obviously. Not in a way Yuna would notice. But Amara felt every glance like a caress against her skin. So, Amara, Doyen said, his voice smooth and controlled, Yuna tells me you're already making an impression at the event planning company. I'm trying. Amara took a sip of wine, needing something to do with her hands. It's different from what I did in Houston, but I'm learning. What did you do in Houston? Marketing for a tech startup. Until I realized my boss was more interested in controlling my life than my career. Something dark flickered in Doyen's eyes. He hurt you. It wasn't a question, and the protective edge in his voice made Amara's breath catch. He tried, she said quietly. I left before he could do more damage. Good. Doyen's jaw tightened. Men who hurt women deserve worse than prison. The intensity in his words sent heat through Amara's entire body. She watched his hand tighten around his chopsticks, watched the muscle in his jaw flex, and felt something primal unfurl in her chest. This man, this dangerous, powerful man, was angry on her behalf. Dad's very protective. Yuna laughed, completely missing the tension crackling between them. He threatened my ex-boyfriend once. It was mortifying. He deserved it, Doyen said, his eyes still on Amara. He didn't treat you with respect. See what I mean? Yuna rolled her eyes affectionately. Anyway, Amara, we should go to that new club in Itaewon next weekend. There's a guy from my office who keeps asking about you. Amara saw Doyen's hand tighten on his glass, saw the flash of something possessive and dark cross his face before he masked it. Maybe, Amara said carefully, her heart racing. I'm not really looking for anything right now. Why not? You've been in Seoul for 3 weeks. You should have fun. Yuna grinned. You're young and gorgeous. Korean guys are going to lose their minds over you. Yuna. Doyen's voice cut through the conversation, sharp enough that both women looked at him. He cleared his throat, softening his tone. Perhaps Amara wants to focus on settling in first. Not everyone needs to jump into dating. Dad, you sound like a protective uncle. Yuna laughed, standing to clear plates. Amara can make her own decisions. Of course she can, Doyen said quietly, his eyes holding Amara's. I'm sure she makes excellent decisions. The double meaning wasn't lost on Amara. Her pulse thundered in her ears. When Yuna disappeared into the kitchen, the silence between them grew thick and charged. You look beautiful tonight, Doyen said softly, so quietly that only she could hear. That dress. That color. Don't. Amara's voice came out breathless. Please don't. Don't what? Tell you the truth. He leaned forward slightly, his voice dropping even lower. Tell you that I haven't been able to stop thinking about you since the moment you opened your door? That watching you smile tonight has been the most painful and perfect experience of my life. You can't say things like that. Amara glanced toward the kitchen, panic and desire warring in her chest. Yuna is my daughter. I know. His voice was rough with restraint. I know exactly how wrong this is, Amara. I've spent 3 weeks trying to convince myself. I imagined what I felt when I first saw you. But then you walk in wearing that dress, and I realize I've been lying to myself. Mr. Kong. What are we talking about? Yuna breezed back in with dessert, and both Amara and Doyen jerked apart like teenagers caught kissing. Your father was just telling me about his work, Amara said quickly, her voice too bright. I didn't realize he was in real estate development. Yuna's expression shifted, something careful sliding into place. Is that what he told you? Amara looked between them, suddenly aware that she'd missed something important. Isn't he? Dad owns several businesses, Yuna said slowly. Real estate is one of them, among other things. The way she said it made Amara's skin prickle. She looked at Doyen, who was watching his daughter with an unreadable expression. What other things? Amara asked. Nothing you need to worry about, Doyen said smoothly. Boring business matters. But Amara caught the look that passed between father and daughter. A warning, a secret. And she realized that Kong Doyen was far more complicated and possibly far more dangerous than she'd imagined. The rest of the dinner passed in a blur of forced conversation and loaded glances. By the time Amara said her goodbyes, her entire body was wound tight with tension and unspoken desire. I'll walk you down, Doyen said, already reaching for his jacket. Dad, you don't have to, Yuna started. It's late. I'll make sure she gets to her car safely. His tone left no room for argument. Amara's heart hammered as they stepped into the elevator together. The doors closed, sealing them in a small space filled with electricity and possibility. For 30 seconds, Neither of them spoke. Then Doyen pressed the emergency stop button. What are you? He moved so fast she barely registered it. One moment, he was across the elevator. The next, he was right there, his hand braced against the wall beside her head, his body inches from hers but not touching. Not yet. Tell me to leave you alone, he said, his voice rough and desperate. Tell me this is insane and I'm too old, and all the 1,000 reasons this can't happen. Please, Amara. Give me one reason to walk away from you. Amara's breath came in short gasps. She could smell his cologne, feel the heat radiating from his body, see the hunger in his dark eyes. Every logical part of her brain screamed that this was wrong. He was Yuna's father. He was 20 years older. He was involved in something dangerous. She didn't fully understand. But when she opened her mouth, what came out was, I can't. You can't what? I can't give you a reason. Her voice shook. Because I've been thinking about you too. Every day. Every night. I lie in bed, and I remember the way you looked at me, and I hate myself for wanting something I can't have. Doyen's hand moved to cup her face, his thumb tracing her cheekbone with devastating gentleness. What if you could have it? What if I could give you everything? You're Yuna's father. I know. This would destroy her. I know. We barely know each other. I know. His forehead rested against hers, and Amara's eyes fluttered closed. I know all of it. Every reason this is impossible. And I don't care. I've built an empire, Amara. I've survived things that would break most men. I've never been afraid of anything in my life. But the thought of never touching you, never knowing what we could be, that terrifies me. Doyen, tell me you don't feel it too. Tell me I'm insane and this is one-sided, and I'll walk away right now. I'll never mention it again. I'll be nothing but your friend's father. Amara opened her eyes, meeting his desperate gaze. She should lie. She should protect them both. Instead, she whispered, I feel it. God help me. I feel everything. He kissed her then, soft at first, tentative like he was afraid she'd disappear. But when Amara's hands fisted in his shirt, pulling him closer, the kiss deepened into something hungry and desperate. His hands tangled in her braids, and she gasped against his mouth, her body arching into his. They kissed like they were drowning and each other was air. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Doyen rested his forehead against hers again. What do we do now? Amara whispered, I don't know. His thumb traced her swollen bottom lip. But I can't stay away from you. I've tried. It's impossible. Yuna. We'll figure it out. I don't know how, but we'll find a way. He pulled back slightly, his dark eyes searching her face. Have dinner with me. Tomorrow. Alone. That's a terrible idea. I know. He smiled, and it transformed his entire face. Made him look younger, less dangerous, heartbreakingly handsome. Say yes anyway. Amara knew she should say no. Knew this was a cliff she was about to jump off with no safety net. Yes, she breathed. His smile widened, and he kissed her again. Softer this time, but no less devastating. When he finally restarted the elevator, they stood on opposite sides, not touching, both of them trying to look like they hadn't just changed everything. The elevator doors opened to the lobby, and Doyen walked Amara to her car with perfect propriety, his hands in his pockets, his expression controlled. But as she drove away, she saw him in her rearview mirror, standing in the parking garage, watching her leave. And the hunger in his eyes made her entire body ache. She was in so much trouble. Amara didn't sleep that night. She lay in her bed, staring at the Seoul skyline through her floor-to-ceiling windows, her lips still tingling from Doyen's kiss. Her phone sat on her nightstand, his name at the top of her contacts, and she kept picking it up and setting it down, torn between wanting to text him and knowing she absolutely shouldn't. At 2 a.m., her phone buzzed. Doyen text pops up. Are you awake? Her heart stopped. She stared at the message for a full minute before typing back. Amara replies, yes. Doyen says, I can't stop thinking about you. Amara replies, you need to stop saying things like that. Doyen asks why. Amara replies, because it makes me want impossible things. 3 dots appeared on her screen, disappeared, appeared again. Doyen says, what if nothing is impossible? What if I told you I've spent 3 months trying to stay away from you, and it's been the hardest thing I've ever done? What if I told you that I've memorized the sound of your laugh, the way you bite your bottom lip when you're thinking, the exact shade of your eyes in sunlight? Amara's hands were shaking. Amara responds, Doyen, we can't do this. Doyen replies, I know, but I'm going to anyway. Dinner tomorrow, 7 p.m. I'll send a car. Amara says, this is insane. Doyen responds, say yes. She should say no. She should block his number. She should call Yuna and confess everything and let her best friend talk sense into her. SHE replies, yes. Doyen tells her, good. Now try to sleep. Dream of me. Amara threw her phone across the bed and pressed her hands to her face. What was she doing? This was Yuna's father, her best friend's father. A man she'd met 3 weeks ago. A man who was clearly involved in something dangerous and possibly illegal. A man who kissed her like she was oxygen and he'd been drowning. She didn't sleep, but she did dream of him, eyes wide open, watching the city lights blur through tears she didn't understand. The next day crawled by in agonizing slowness. Amara went to work, smiled at her colleagues, planned a corporate event for a pharmaceutical company, and pretended her entire world wasn't tilting on its axis. Every time her phone buzzed, her heart jumped. But Doyen didn't text again. At 5 p.m., she left work early and went home to change. She told herself she wasn't going to dress up. Told herself this was just dinner. A conversation. Nothing more. She was still lying to herself. At exactly 7 p.m., her phone rang. Miss Obi? An unfamiliar voice, polite and professional. I'm Min Suk, Mr. Kang's driver. I'm downstairs whenever you're ready. Amara's stomach flipped. I'll be right down. The car waiting for her was a black Mercedes with tinted windows. The driver, Min Suk, she assumed, was a young Korean man with kind eyes and a professional demeanor. He opened the door for her without comment, and Amara slid into the back seat, her heart hammering. They drove through Seoul as the city transformed into a sea of lights. Amara watched the streets blur past, trying to calm her racing thoughts. Where were they going? What was she doing? How had her life gone from fleeing Houston to sitting in a luxury car on her way to a secret dinner with a man she absolutely shouldn't want? The car pulled up to a building in Gangnam, sleek and modern and clearly exclusive. Min Suk opened her door, gesturing to the private elevator. Top floor, Miss Obi. Mr. Kong is expecting you. Amara's legs felt like water as she stepped into the elevator. Her reflection stared back at her from the mirrored walls, looking terrified and excited in equal measure. The elevator opened directly into a penthouse that stole her breath. Floor-to-ceiling windows showcased Seoul's sprawling 40 floors below, the city lights glittering like scattered diamonds. The space was all clean lines and understated luxury, dark wood, leather furniture, abstract art that probably cost more than her yearly salary. And in the center of it all, standing by the windows with a glass of whiskey, was Doyen. He turned when the elevator doors opened, and the look on his face when he saw her made Amara's knees weak. Pure, undisguised hunger. Desire so intense it was almost painful to witness. Amara, he breathed, setting down his glass and moving toward her. You're devastating. You said dinner. Amara managed, her voice barely steady. This is your home. I wanted privacy. He stopped a few feet away, like he didn't trust himself to get closer. I wanted to be somewhere we could talk honestly without worrying about who might see us. Or you wanted to get me alone. That too. His honesty was disarming. But I meant what I said. We need to talk about this. About what's happening between us. Amara moved further into the penthouse, putting distance between them because being too close made it hard to think. What is happening between us, Doyen? You're 20 years older than me. You're my best friend's father. We barely know each other. I know that you take your coffee black with 1 sugar. I know you hum when you're concentrating. I know you speak Yoruba when you're stressed because Yuna told me you called her speaking rapid Yoruba when your ex started harassing you. I know you're terrified of being controlled again, which is why you left Houston. He moved closer, his voice dropping. I know you bite your bottom lip when you're nervous. I know the sound of your laugh makes my chest ache. I know that when I kissed you last night, you tasted like wine and something sweeter, and I've thought about nothing else for 24 hours. That's not knowing me. That's obsession. Yes. He didn't deny it. I've been obsessed with you for 93 days, Amara. Since the moment I saw you in that doorway in yoga pants and no bra, looking at me like I was just another man instead of someone people fear. Should I fear you? Something dark flickered across his face. Probably. Most people do. Why? Because I'm not a real estate developer. That's what I tell my daughter, because she doesn't need to know the truth about what I do. Amara's heart kicked up. And what do you do? I control things, he said carefully. Territory. Businesses. Information. I'm what people call when they need problems solved quietly. You're a criminal. I'm a businessman operating in gray areas. His jaw tightened. I've done things I'm not proud of. Things that would probably horrify you. But I've never hurt anyone who didn't hurt someone first. I protect people. I build things. And yes, sometimes I use methods that exist outside the law. Amara should run. Should get back in that elevator and never look back. Instead, she asked, "Are you dangerous?" To you? Never. He moved closer, his eyes burning with intensity. To anyone who tries to hurt you? Absolutely. The possessive edge in his voice sent heat through her entire body. This is insane. I know. Yuna would never forgive us. I know. We should stop this before it goes any further. Do you want to stop? He was right in front of her now, his hand lifting to cup her face with heartbreaking gentleness. Because I'll walk away right now if that's what you truly want. I'll be nothing but your friend's father. I'll keep my distance. But you have to tell me that's what you want, and you have to mean it. Amara looked up into his dark eyes and saw raw vulnerability there. This powerful, dangerous man was giving her all the control, letting her decide their fate. I don't want to stop, she whispered. I should, but I don't. Thank God, he breathed and kissed her. This kiss was different from the elevator. Slower, deeper. A claiming and a surrender all at once. His hands slid into her braids, tilting her head back, and Amara melted against him with a soft moan. He tasted like whiskey and promises, and she felt herself falling into something vast and terrifying and absolutely right. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Doyen rested his forehead against hers. Stay, he whispered. Have dinner with me. Let me feed you and talk to you and learn everything I don't already know. No pressure. No expectations. Just us. Just us, Amara repeated, knowing it was a lie. There was no just us. There was Yuna and secrets and danger and 1,000 complications. But when Doyen took her hand and led her to the dining table where someone had prepared a beautiful meal, she followed him anyway. They ate japchae and bulgogi, the same meal Yuna had made the night before, and talked for hours. Doyen told her about growing up in Busan, about building his empire from nothing, about his late wife who died when Yuna was 10. Amara told him about Lagos, about her family's disappointment when she'd left Nigeria for America, about her dreams of building her own event planning company someday. I'll help you, Doyen said simply. Whatever you need. Funding, connections, space. I don't want your money. I know. That's one of the things I love about you. He said it so casually, like he hadn't just used the word love, and Amara's heart stopped. Doyen. Too soon? He smiled, that devastating smile that made him look younger. I told you. I don't do anything halfway. When I want something, I commit completely. And I want you, Amara. More than I've wanted anything in 20 years. They talked until midnight, soul glittering below them like a sea of fallen stars. Somewhere around 11 p.m., they'd moved from the dining table to the leather couch by the windows, and now Amara was tucked against Doyen's side, her head on his shoulder, his arm around her waist. It felt natural. Right. Like they'd been doing this for years instead of hours. Tell me something nobody else knows about you, Doyen said softly, his fingers tracing idle patterns on her hip through the burgundy dress. Amara considered lying, keeping herself safe, then decided she was already too far gone for safety. I'm terrified, she whispered. Of this. Of you. Of how much I want something I know I shouldn't have. I left Houston because I let a man control me, make me small, and I swore I'd never give anyone that kind of power over me again. But then you look at me, and I feel like I'd give you everything. Doyen's hand stilled. He shifted so he could see her face, his dark eyes intense. I would never make you small, Amara. Never. You're the strongest woman I've ever met. You walked away from someone who was hurting you. You moved halfway across the world to start over. You look at me, a man most people are terrified of, and you see just a man. That's not weakness. That's power. You say that now. I mean it. His hand cupped her face, thumb stroking her cheekbone. I'm not him. I'm not your ex. I don't want to control you. I want to worship you, protect you, give you everything you've ever wanted. But you're always free to walk away. Always. Do you understand? Amara nodded, tears pricking her eyes. Tell me something nobody knows about you. Doyen was quiet for a long moment, his thumb still tracing her cheek. When he finally spoke, his voice was rough with emotion. I'm lonely. I've been lonely for 20 years, since my wife died. I built this empire, created this life, made myself into someone powerful and feared. But at the end of every day, I come back to this empty penthouse, and I wonder what the point of any of it is. And then I saw you, and for the first time in 2 decades, I didn't feel alone anymore. You look at me, and I feel seen. Really seen. Not the silent king. Not Kong Doyen, the criminal. Just me. Amara's heart cracked open. She turned in his arms, straddling his lap, her hands framing his face. I see you, she whispered. I see you, Doyen. And I'm here. I'm right here. He kissed her then, soft and desperate, his hands sliding up her back to tangle in her braids. Amara kissed him back with everything she had, all her fear and desire, and the terrifying realization that she was falling for this man faster than gravity. When his hands moved to the zipper of her dress, she didn't stop him. When he laid her back on the couch and covered her body with his, she pulled him closer. When he whispered her name against her throat like a prayer, she arched into his touch and let herself fall. They made love on that couch overlooking Seoul, slow and intense and achingly tender. Doyen touched her like she was precious, like she might disappear if he wasn't careful. And Amara gave herself to him completely, every wall she'd built crumbling under the weight of how much she wanted this, wanted him. Afterward, they lay tangled together, both breathing hard, Doyen's face buried in her neck. Stay tonight, he murmured against her skin. Sleep here. Wake up with me. Amara knew she should say no. Should go home, create distance, think clearly. But when he looked at her with those vulnerable dark eyes, she couldn't. Okay, she whispered. I'll stay. He carried her to his bedroom, a massive space dominated by a king-sized bed and more windows overlooking the city. He undressed her slowly, reverently, and then himself, and they slid between silk sheets together. Amara expected him to reach for her again, but instead, he just pulled her against his chest, his arms wrapped around her like he was afraid she'd vanish. Thank you, he whispered into her hair. For what? For seeing me. For being brave enough to want this. For being here. Amara pressed a kiss to his chest, right over his heart. Thank you. For counting the days. For being obsessed. For making me feel wanted again. They fell asleep like that, wrapped around each other, and for the first time in months, Amara felt safe. She woke to sunlight streaming through the windows and the smell of coffee. Amara stretched, wincing slightly at the pleasant ache in her body, and realized she was alone in the massive bed. Panic fluttered in her chest. Had he regretted it? Changed his mind? Before she heard movement in the other room. She found one of his shirts and pulled it on, the white fabric falling to mid-thigh, and padded barefoot out of the bedroom. Doyen stood in the kitchen, wearing only sleep pants slung low on his hips, his back to her as he worked the espresso machine. His back was a canvas of old scars, some small, some large, all telling stories of a dangerous life. But what caught Amara's attention was the way his muscles moved under his skin, the confident grace in every movement. You're staring, he said without turning around, amusement in his voice. You're beautiful, Amara replied honestly. He turned then, and the look on his face when he saw her in his shirt made her breath catch. Pure possessive hunger. No, he said, his voice rough. You're beautiful. You in my shirt, in my kitchen, looking like you belong here. That's the most beautiful thing I've ever seen. He crossed to her in 3 strides and kissed her breathless, his hands sliding under the shirt to grip her hips. When he finally pulled back, they were both breathing hard. "Coffee," he managed. "Please." He made her coffee exactly how she liked it, black with 1 sugar, without asking. Because of course he remembered. He remembered everything about her. They sat at the kitchen island together, legs tangled, drinking coffee and talking about nothing important. It felt domestic. Normal. Like they were a real couple instead of a secret that would devastate the person they both loved most. "We need to tell Yuna," Amara said quietly, the guilt she'd been suppressing all night finally surfacing. Doyen's jaw tightened. "I know. She's going to hate us." "She's going to hate me," he corrected. "You're her best friend. She'll forgive you eventually. But me." He set down his coffee cup, his expression bleak. "I'm her father. This will break her trust in me. Possibly permanently. Then maybe we should."
"No."
His hand caught hers, desperation in his eyes. "Don't say we should stop. Please, Amara. I know I'm selfish. I know this is asking too much. But I can't give you up. Not now. Not when I've finally found something real." Amara's heart ached. "I don't want to stop either. But Yuna. We'll tell her.
Soon.
I promise. Just give me a few days to figure out how. Let me find the right words." His thumb traced circles on her palm. "I've faced down rival gangs, negotiated with murderers, survived assassination attempts. But the thought of telling my daughter I'm in love with her best friend terrifies me more than any of that." "In love?" Amara's voice came out barely above a whisper. Doyen's eyes met hers, raw and vulnerable.
"Yes."
"I'm in love with you, Amara.
Completely. Desperately.
I know it's too soon. I know I sound insane. But I've spent 93 days trying to fight this, and I can't anymore. I love you." Tears spilled down Amara's cheeks. She should feel trapped. Should feel pressured. Should feel anything except this overwhelming wave of joy. "I love you too," she whispered. "God help me, I love you too." He kissed her again, and this time it was different. Not desperate or hungry, but tender and sure. A promise. A commitment. They spent the rest of Sunday in his penthouse, existing in a bubble where the outside world didn't matter. They made love twice more, once in the shower, once back in his bed with morning light streaming over their tangled bodies. They cooked breakfast together, or rather, Doyen cooked while Amara sat on the counter and distracted him with kisses. They talked about everything and nothing, learning each other's rhythms and preferences and dreams. It was perfect. It was also the last peaceful day they would have for a very long time. Monday morning, Amara returned to her apartment to change for work. She was floating, wrapped in the memory of Doyen's touch, already missing him even though they'd only been apart for an hour. Her phone buzzed as she stepped out of the shower. Yuna's text pops up. "Coffee this week? I miss you. Dad keeps asking about you, by the way. I think he likes you." Smiling face with smiling eyes. Guilt crashed over Amara like a wave. She stared at the message, her stomach churning, and realized just how badly they'd already betrayed Yuna. Every moment they delayed telling her made it worse. She was still staring at her phone when someone knocked on her door. Amara wrapped herself in a robe and checked the peephole. A delivery man stood there with a massive bouquet of white roses. She opened the door, accepting the flowers with a confused smile. "I think there's been a mistake. I didn't order." "For Miss Amara Obi," the delivery man confirmed. "From Mr. Kong." Her heart fluttered. She carried the roses inside, finding the card tucked among the blooms. 94 days. One perfect night. 1,000 more to come.
D.
Amara was smiling at the card, her heart so full it hurt, when her phone rang. Doyen's name flashed on the screen. "Did you get them?" His voice was warm, affectionate. "They're beautiful. You didn't have to." "I wanted to. I want to send you flowers every day. I want to wake up with you every morning. I want." He paused, and something in the silence made Amara's skin prickle. "Doyen? What's wrong?" "Nothing. I need to handle some business today. But tonight, have dinner with me again? My place." "Are you sure everything's okay?" "You sound." "I'm fine, sweetheart. I promise. Just some territorial disputes I need to manage. Nothing you need to worry about." But Amara did worry. because there was something in his voice, something careful and controlled, that set off alarm bells. "Be safe," she said softly. "Always. I have too much to live for now. I love you, Amara. I love you too." She hung up, staring at the white roses, and tried to ignore the creeping sense that something was about to go very, very wrong. Drop a heart if you're Team Amara and Doyen despite everything. And tell me, would you risk it all for love like this? Amara never made it to work that day. She was in her bedroom, getting dressed, when she heard it. A sound that didn't belong. The soft click of her apartment door unlocking. Her blood turned to ice. She froze, one heel on, the other in her hand, listening. Footsteps. Multiple sets. Moving quietly, but not quietly enough. Someone was in her apartment. Amara's mind raced. Her phone was in the living room. The bedroom door was open. There was no lock, no weapon, no way out except through whoever was out there. She thought of Doyen's words from the night before. "I protect people. And yes, sometimes I use methods that exist outside the law." This was his world. The dangerous one he tried to shield her from. And it had just found her. A shadow moved past her bedroom door. Amara's survival instincts kicked in. She'd grown up in Lagos. She knew how to fight, how to survive. She gripped the heel in her hand like a weapon, pressed herself against the wall beside the door, and waited. When the first man stepped into her bedroom, young, Korean, with cold eyes and a gun, Amara struck without hesitation. The heel connected with his temple. He staggered, and she was already moving, grabbing his gun arm, using his momentum to slam him into the doorframe. But there was another one behind him, and another, and suddenly Amara was fighting for her life. She fought like a woman who'd promised herself she'd never be a victim again. Kicked, clawed, bit, used every dirty trick she'd ever learned. She got the first man's gun and fired once, twice, before someone hit her from behind and the world tilted. She was on the ground, someone's knee in her back, zip ties cutting into her wrists, when she heard the voice that made her heart stop. Enough. Deep, accented, familiar. "Don't hurt her. She's the package." Amara twisted her head, trying to see, and caught a glimpse of a tall Korean man in an expensive suit. Not one of the attackers. Someone else. Someone watching. "Who are you?" she spat, blood from her split lip making her words thick. "Someone who knows what you're worth to Kong Doyen," the man said calmly. "And you, Miss Obi, are worth everything to him, which makes you very valuable to me." Terror flooded through her, but Amara forced herself to think. "He'll kill you for this. He'll try, but first, he'll have to choose between you and his empire." The man smiled, cold and calculating. "Let's see which one the Silent King values more." They hauled her to her feet, and Amara fought every step, screaming, kicking, making them work for every inch. One of them backhanded her hard enough that stars exploded across her vision, but she didn't stop. She would not go quietly. Then she heard it. Gunfire. Close. In the hallway, the men holding her tensed, weapons drawn, and suddenly the door exploded inward. Min-suk, Doyen's driver, came through first, moving with lethal efficiency. Behind him, 3 more men, all armed, all clearly professional. The fight was brutal and short. Amara dropped to the floor as bullets flew over her head, covering her face, praying. When the shooting stopped, Min-suk was kneeling beside her, cutting her zip ties with gentle hands. "Miss Obi, are you hurt?" I'm okay." Her hands were shaking violently. "How did you?" "Mr. Kong had security watching your building. When these men entered, we were alerted immediately. He helped her stand, steadying her when her legs wobbled. We need to get you somewhere safe.
Now."
Where's Doyen?" Min-suk's expression darkened. "Occupied. The attack on you was a distraction. His warehouse in Hanam is under siege. He's walking into a trap, and he knows it, but he had no choice. They knew he'd come for you. Then we have to. Miss Obi." Min-suk's voice was firm, but kind. Mr. Kang's orders were explicit.
"Get you to safety first."
Everything else is secondary. But Amara wasn't listening, because she understood now, with crystal clarity, what was happening. Someone had figured out what she meant to Doyen, and they were using her to destroy him.
"Take me to him," she said.
Absolutely not. Take me to him, or I'll find my own way. Amara's voice was steel despite her shaking hands.
He's in danger because of me.
I won't hide while he fights my battles. Minsuk stared at her for a long moment, clearly warring with his orders and the fierce determination in her eyes. Finally, he nodded. Mr. Kong is going to kill me for this. He'll have to survive first. The warehouse in Hannam was exactly what Amara expected from a crime boss. Vast, industrial, and currently surrounded by at least 40 armed men. Minsuk pulled the car to a stop 3 blocks away, his face grim. This is as close as I can safely get. Miss Obi, please reconsider. How do I get inside? He sighed, defeated, and pulled out his phone. Made a call in rapid Korean. Then turned to her. There's a service entrance on the east side. Mr. Kang's men control it, but barely. They're heavily outnumbered. The Busisin gang planned this perfectly. They've been watching Mr. Kong for months, waiting for a weakness. His eyes met hers. You're that weakness. Amara's jaw tightened. Then let's turn their trap against them. Tell whoever's on that phone that I'm coming in. Tell them. She took a breath, steadying herself. Tell them to let Doyen know. Maybe it'll stop him from doing something stupid. More stupid than walking into a siege to save the woman he loves? Minsuk's lips quirked despite the tension. Miss Obi, I've worked for Mr. Kong for 15 years.
I've never seen him like this. Desperate.
Reckless. You've undone the most controlled man I know. Good, Amara said fiercely. Now tell me how to get inside. Amara had never been more terrified in her life than when she slipped through that service entrance, past Doyen's wounded men who stared at her like she was insane, and into the warehouse proper. The scene inside stole her breath. Doyen stood in the center of the vast space, surrounded by at least 43 armed men. She counted automatically, her event planner brain cataloging details even in crisis. His own men were positioned around him, maybe 12 total, several already wounded. It was a massacre waiting to happen, and Doyen's hands were raised in surrender. I'll give you Gangnam, he was saying, his voice carrying across the warehouse. Every building, every business, every territory. Just let her go. Too late for negotiations. The Busisin boss, the same man from her apartment, sneered. You should have stayed in your lane, Kong. Should have remembered that powerful men don't get to have weaknesses. That's when Amara stepped into the light. Let him go, she called out, her voice surprisingly steady despite her racing heart. I'm the weakness you wanted. I'm here. Let his men leave, and I'll stay. Every head swiveled toward her, but Amara only saw Doyen. The look on his face, absolute horror, fury, and something that looked like anguish, would haunt her forever. No, he breathed, the word barely audible. Then louder. Amara, what are you doing? Get out. Get out. Not without you. She walked forward, keeping her eyes locked on his. You said you'd never make me small, that I was strong. So let me be strong now. Let me save you the way you tried to save me. You stupid, beautiful woman, Doyen said, and there were tears in his voice. You're going to get yourself killed. Then we die together. Amara stopped 20 feet from him, close enough to see every emotion flickering across his face. I love you, Doyen. I won't watch you sacrifice everything for me. The Busisin boss laughed, cold and cruel. How touching. The Silent King finally has something to lose. Makes you human, doesn't it? Makes you weak. No, Doyen said softly, his eyes never leaving Amara's face. It makes me desperate. And a desperate man is far more dangerous than a powerful one. Something in his voice made Amara's skin prickle, made the Busisin boss's smile falter. Then Doyen smiled, and it was terrifying. You made one critical mistake, he said quietly. You assumed I came here alone. The warehouse exploded into chaos. Windows shattered as men rappelled from the roof. The east entrance, the one Amara had come through, burst open with reinforcements. Doyen's men, who'd seemed wounded and defeated, suddenly moved with lethal precision. It had all been theater. A trap within a trap. Doyen was moving before Amara could process what was happening, crossing the distance between them in seconds, his body covering hers as bullets flew. They went down together, and he curled around her, protecting her with his entire body. I'm going to kill you for coming here, he said against her hair, his voice rough with fear and fury and love. As soon as we survive this, I'm going to absolutely destroy you. Promise. Amara gasped, pressing her face into his chest. Promise. The battle lasted 3 minutes, but felt like hours. Amara kept her eyes closed, Doyen's heartbeat thundering against her ear, the sound of gunfire deafening. She felt him tense above her once, heard him grunt in pain, and terror flooded her system. Doyen, I'm fine.
Stay down.
Don't move. Then, abruptly, silence. Amara opened her eyes to carnage. Bodies littered the floor. Doyen's men were still standing, weapons trained on the surviving Bususan members, maybe 5 total, including their boss, all on their knees with hands raised. Doyen stood slowly, pulling Amara up with him, his arm never leaving her waist. His eyes found the Bususan boss. You said powerful men don't get to have weaknesses, Doyen said, his voice deadly calm. You were wrong. Powerful men don't get to have weaknesses that make them vulnerable. But a woman like Amara, his arm tightened around her. She doesn't make me weak. She makes me absolutely merciless. He raised his gun. Amara turned her face into his shoulder, and the gunshot echoed through the warehouse. It was over. But as Doyen held her, both of them breathing hard, covered in dust and fear, Amara knew this was only the beginning. Because somewhere in Seoul, Yuna was about to discover the truth. And that confrontation would hurt far more than any bullet. If you made it this far, you're officially part of the Afro-Korean Love Stories family. But wait, you thought that was intense? The warehouse is done, but the real battle is about to begin when Yuna discovers the truth about her father and her best friend. Hit that like button if Amara and Doyen just wrecked you emotionally, and subscribe because part 2 is coming and it's going to absolutely destroy you. Drop a red heart if you're Team Amara and Doyen. Drop a heart if you're worried about Yuna, and tell me in the comments, could you forgive your best friend for falling in love with your father? Turn on those notifications because what happens next will leave you speechless. I'll see you in the comments. Let's talk about this.